Hello, good day. In this video, I am definitely going to start from where I stopped in our previous class on linear equation. In our previous class, we look at the basics for linear equations, what makes an equations to be linear. We look at definition of equations. We look at the meaning of the unknown terms, the coefficients of the unknown terms, the constant term in an equations, the size of an equations, as well as the meaning of the solution of an equations. I will also look at an aspect of the numbers theory that has to do with additive inverse and multiplicative inverse. Then we concluded by looking at different forms of linear equations. So like I said, an equation is said to be linear if the highest power of the unknown is 1, and such an equation has one solution, one answer. So today we're going to look at how do we resolve a linear equation of the form. So we're going to look at how we're going to look at a linear equation of this form: ax plus b is equals to cx plus d. This is typically what we're going to look at today. If you come across a linear equation of this form, how do we really resolve it? In our previous class, we looked at how to resolve a linear equation of this form: ax plus b equals y. So this is the one we have done with this in our previous class. But today we are going to look at how do we resolve a linear equation of this form. So if you look at these equations, we have two sides. On the left hand side, we have an unknown term ax here, and here on the right hand side you also have an unknown term cx, and on both sides we have a constant term on both sides. So if you are confronted with this kind of linear equation, how do we resolve it amicably? So that is typically what we are going to look at in this video. So first thing we will do, we're going to see steps. We're going to look at steps involved. Steps involved in resolving linear equation of the form ax plus b is equals to cs plus d. So the first step, step 1 here, identify the unknown terms on both sides of the equation. So the first thing you do, you have to identify the unknown terms on both sides of the equation. If you look at here, the unknown terms Here are ax and cx. That's the first thing you have to identify. Then step 2. Identify the constant terms on both sides of the equation. So we have to identify the constant term on both sides of the equations. And if you look at this equation, the constant terms are the ones that are devoid of the unknown terms, which is b and d. So we have to identify it. Then step 3. Identify the smaller value of the unknown term in step 1. Step 4. Identify the smaller value of the constant term in step 2. So that's the next step after identifying the two unknown terms on both sides and the constant term on both sides. The next is among these ax and cx, you have identified the smaller one of them. Then, as well as the smaller one between the b and d. So those are the things you have to do. Then step 5. Step 5. Find the additive inverse of the smaller unknown term, okay, of the smaller unknown and constant terms. That is in step 3 and step 4. So that is step 5. You find the additive inverse of it. Then step 6, add the additive inverse of the result in step 5 to both sides. Then step 7, identify the coefficient of the unknown term. The coefficient of the unknown term in in step 6. Then the final step is step 8. Okay, step 8. Okay, step 8. Find the reciprocal of the unknowns. Find the reciprocal of the unknown step in step 7 and multiply it by both sides. These are the steps that we must follow. The first step is you have to identify the constant terms. You have to identify the unknown terms on both sides of the equation. Step 2, you have to identify the constant term on both sides of the equations. That's step 2. So in step 3, among the unknown terms in step 1, you have to find the smaller one. Then as well as the smaller one of the constant term in step 2. Thereafter, you find the additive inverse of those steps. Then thereafter, you add the additive inverse of the result in step 5 to both sides. To what? To both sides. Then step 7, say identify the coefficient of the unknown terms in step what? 6. Then finally find the reciprocal. Find the reciprocal of the unknown terms in step 7 and multiply it by both sides. These are the 8 steps that you need to follow. It's very short because I'm writing it on the board, that's why you're seeing it like that. So these are the steps. If you follow this step systematically, you are going to get this answer to this kind of linear equations with ease. So let's take a look at an example. To see how this steps actually works. How this step actually work. Okay. Example. Find the value of b in ab minus 10 is equals to 5d plus 8. Find the value of b in 8d minus 10 is equals to 5d plus 8. You look at this equation, is of the form of what I've just mentioned. And so let's write it down first. This is 8d minus 10 is equals to 5d plus 8. So our step, I will just list them here. This first step says that we should identify the unknown terms on both sides of the equation. So if you look at this equation, I will have two sides. The left hand side, the unknown term there is what? Is 8d, and on the right hand side, the unknown term is 5d. So here we say this is 8d, then we have 5d. These are the unknown term on both sides of the equation. We have identified it. Then step 2 says that we should identify the constant terms on both sides of the equation. So these are the constant term, minus 10. On the left hand side is minus 10, and on the right hand side is plus 8. So we have identified them. Then our step 3 specify that we should look for the smaller value of the unknown terms in step 1. So let's look at this. This is step 3. So let's look for the smaller one of between this 8D and 5D. Which one is smaller? It's 5D. So we have a 5D here. Then step 4 says we should also look for the smaller one of the constant term. That is step what? Step 2. The smaller one between -10 and 8 is -10. So we'll look for it. So our step 5 specify that we should find the additive inverse of step 3 and step 4. So what will be the additive inverse of plus 5? Like I said, additive inverse of any number is usually obtained by changing the sign from this is plus, you change it to minus. So this becomes minus 5D. In case of 5D. Then the additive inverse of minus 10 will become what? Plus what? Plus 10. So it's the property says that if you add this to this, it must give us 0. Add this to this, it must what? Give us 0. So in our step 6, it said we should what? We should add the additive inverse of the smaller of the unknown terms and the smaller of the constant term to both sides of the equation. So our equation is this. Our equation is 8D. 8D minus 10 is equal to 5D plus 8. So we are going to add this to both sides. So here we have 8D minus 5D. Then we have minus 10 here before. We're adding what? Plus 10 to it. So the same thing they say to both sides, not just one side. Here we have 5D minus 5D. Here we have 8 before plus 10. You see that minus 10 plus 10 is off, and on this side we have 8D minus 5D. That will give us 3D. So 5D minus 5D is off, and what we are left here, 8 plus 10, that will give us 18. So we have done that one. So we have come to this step. Then the next step is, this is our step 6. The step 6 say that the result we obtain from, this is step 6 now. Step 6, the result is this 3D is equals to what? 18. So we say we should find in step 7 say we should find the what? The coefficient of the unknown term in step 6. That is step 7. So this is step 6 now. So the coefficient of the unknown term after our operation here is 3. So and step 8 says that we should do what? Find the reciprocal of step 7 and use it to multiply both sides of the equation. So the reciprocal of 3 or the multiplicative inverse of 3 is 1 over 3. So 3, the reciprocal is 1 over 3. So we use 1 over 3 to multiply both sides of this equation. So here we have 1 over 3 times 3D is equals to 1 over 3 times what? 18. So this will go off with this, and here we have D. 3 here 1, 3 in 18. How many group of 3 and 18 is 6? So your D is equals to what? C. Therefore, D is equals to what? 6. And that is the solution to the equations. So the solution to the equation is 6. It's basically 6. Now, if you look at this, let's do some checking. Let's see whether the right hand side and the left hand side they are the same, so that we know that they satisfy the basics principle of equation that says that equations are statements showing that two mathematical expressions are the same. So here on the left hand side we have a 8D 8d minus 10. So 8 and d is 6. 8 times 6 minus 10. This is 48 minus 10. That will give us 38. That gives 38. Now let's look at our right hand side, which is 5d plus 8. 5 times 6 plus 8, which is 30 plus 8, and that also gives 38. You see that both sides are what? Not the same. So it means that 6 satisfy this equation. So 6 is the solution to this given equation. So all the steps, you must know it. The first step is for you to identify the unknown terms on both sides of the equation, which we have done here. Then the next step is to identify the constant term on both sides as well, which is minus 10 and 8. Then the next step is that you have to look among these two unknown, the smaller one, you write it down. Among these two constant terms, the smaller one, you write it down. And after writing it down, the next step is for you to look for the additive inverse. Somebody might ask that, why is it minus 10 and 8? Why is it minus 10 is smaller than minus 8? Because it's already a negative sign already attached to it. That makes it smaller. So minus 8, minus 10 is smaller compared to plus 8. So after obtaining the smaller of the two, you look for the additive inverse. Additive inverse of 5d is minus 5d. Additive inverse of minus 10 is plus 10. And the next thing you do is for you to add the additive inverse of this minus 5d plus 10d to both sides of the equation, which we have done here. So the original equation is 8d minus 10. So 8d minus 5d minus 10 plus 10. So we did it to both sides. We did it to both sides, and that is why you see that minus 10 plus 10 is off. 5d minus 5d, they are off. What we left here, 8d minus 5d is 3d. 8 plus 10 is 18. And our next step is that we should look for the coefficient of the unknown term in this from here. The coefficient of d here is 3. So you find the reciprocal of 3 to be what? 1 over 3, and you eventually use it to multiply both sides. That's why we end up getting d is equals to 6. Okay, that's how we resolve our questions that has to do with linear equation of the form ax plus b is equals to cs plus d. Okay, now let's typically look at one example before we look at another forms of linear equation. So let's look at another equation, example 2. Example 2, solve for k plus 1. Okay, let me do it like this. Find k plus 1 square if 3 over 4k minus 1 is equals to k plus 4. Okay, find k plus 1, close bracket, raised over 2, if 3k minus 1 is equals to k plus 4. You see that it's typically of the form ax plus b is equals to cs plus d. So I will follow our normal step. The first step is that we have to what? We have to identify the unknown term. We have to identify the unknown term on both sides, and the unknown term is one side is 3 over 4k, and on the other side is just k. Then number 2, we have to identify the constant term on both sides. The constant term on what? On both sides. So the constant term on both sides is, one is minus on the left hand side, minus 1, and on the right hand side is what? Is plus 4. Is what? Plus 4. So the constant term on both sides, one is minus 1 and the other is plus 4. And our step 3 says that we should find the smaller one between 3 over 4k and k. That's where we now have some issue. So between 3 over 4k and 4k, what will be the smaller one of them? The truth is that this k means the k here, the coefficient of k here is 3 over 4, and the coefficient of k here is 1. So 3 over 4 and 1, which one is smaller? So the smaller one here is typically 3 over what? 3 over 4 over 4k. That is the smaller one. So because k is bigger than 3 over 4k. So if we change this 3 over 4k, 3 over 4 to decimal, it will be 0.75, and 1 is bigger than that. So let's take note of that. Then the step 4, so we should look for the smaller one between the constant term here, minus 1 and 4. And this will become, our answer here will be minus 1. So we have done that. So in this case, we have to look for the next step, we have to look for what? The additive inverse of these two, step 3 and 4. Additive inverse of minus 3 over 4k will give us minus 3 over 4k, and that of minus 1 will just be plus 1. So our step 6 here is that we are going to add the additive inverse of this and this to both sides. This to both sides. So let's come, our equation is this of this nature, 3 over 4, let me write it out, minus 1 is equals to k plus 4. So these are what we are going to add to it. So we have 3 over 4k minus 3 over 4k, minus 1 is here already, then plus 1 is equals to k minus 3 over 4k. We have plus 4 here before, plus 1. You see that this one and this are off, and this and this they are off, and everything becomes what? 0. So here 0 here is equals to what? This times this. So here k, this one is k over 1, and the LCM of what we have here is 1 and 4 is 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times k is k. 4 divided by 1 is 4. 4 times k is 4k. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times 3 is what? Minus 3k plus 5. K plus 5. And here we have 0 here. 4k minus 3k will just give us k over 4 plus 5. Then what do we need to do here? If you look at this one has turned us to the other type of linear equation, this form ax plus b. So our y here is this. So let's find the additive, add the additive inverse of 5 to both sides. Add what? The additive inverse of 5 to both sides. So we have 0 minus 5 is equals to k over 4 5 minus 5, so that we'll be able to proceed further. So here we have minus 5 is equals to k over 4. This one is off. Then you know what we're looking for here is the value of k. And this, I can rewrite this one as k over, this one I can write it as 1 over 4, k is equals to minus 5. So because we're looking for k, so our next step is that we have to look for the coefficient of k. So the coefficient of k here is 1 over 4. So in step 7, so our next step here, this is 1 over 4, k is equals to minus 5. So the coefficient of k here, so is 1 over 4. Then if it is 1 over 4, what will be the reciprocal? 1 over 4. The reciprocal of 1 over 4, or the multiplicative inverse of 1 over 4, is that we write 4 as the numerator and 1 as the denominator. So it will be what? 4 divided by 1 is 4. So the reciprocal of 1 over 4 is 4. So we're going to use this 4 to multiply both sides. That will be our last step. We say multiply both sides. Multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1 over 4, which is 4. So we say 4 times 1 over 4, okay, is equals to 4 times minus 5. So this will go with this, so that your k will be 4 times minus 5. That will give us minus 20. And if you look at our questions say that find k plus 1 all raised to power 2. K plus 1 all raised to power what? 2. Our k is minus 20. So k plus 1 all raised to power 2 will be minus 20 plus 1 all square. Minus 20 plus 1 all square, and that will give us minus 19. Minus 19 all bracket square, and that will give us minus 19 times minus what? 19. So minus 19 times minus 19. And if we do that, this become minus times minus is plus. So we have here this is 9 plus 10 times 19. So this is 190 plus 9 times 81, and that one, 9 times 1, 170. 9 times 1 is 9 plus the 8. 9 plus 8 is 17. So if we add this together, it will give us there's 361. So we cannot say that therefore, k plus 1 all square is equal to 361. That's our final answer. So this is how to resolve linear equation of the form ax plus b is equal to cx plus d. So if you follow this procedure tactically, you will arrive at the answer. So in our next class, we are going to look at other forms of linear equations, how to resolve them. So please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Help me share to other groups. I want comment from you, so that I will know how to do it much more better than this. Have a nice time.